We were persuaded by some very competent people that it would be a mistake for the veterans to select their own memorial. Indeed, that we needed an impartial group of professionals, design professionals, who could really rise above the fray and select a memorial for us. Another problem was, how do you select a random group of Vietnam veterans? Because the veterans of Vietnam are as diverse a group as any other randomly selected group in our society. There were many different eras in the Vietnam War, many different years that the war raged, and each year was different for the soldiers who served there. If you were there in 1965, this was the year when the people who were serving in Vietnam joined because John F. Kennedy inspired them by saying, ask not what your country can do, ask what you can do for your country. By the time I got there in 1969, all of that type of patriotic fervor had gone. This was a war being fought by draftees. The morale was bad. It was obvious we were not going to win. Nobody really wanted to be the last person killed over there. It was just became a very sad thing.
Some people felt that we ourselves should constitute the jury. And however, I knew I didn't know anything about art and design, and I knew that the people around me knew less. And that wasn't taken very seriously by anyone. And then there was the idea to have what I would call the affirmative action jury. Have, for example, 3 Vietnam veterans, 2 Gold Star mothers, 1 anti-war protester, or something like that. And the problem with that, of course, is that, again, what do these people know about design? And so we, after much dissension, agreed to go along with the idea of a blue ribbon panel. And we decided there would be 2 architects, 2 landscape architects, 2 sculptors, and 1 humanist.
They said, we trust you. We are taking a hell of a risk with you people, but nonetheless, we trust you. And we tried to respond to that trust as responsibly as we could. We confronted the submissions very carefully. We looked at each one of the 1,441 entries. Now, there was a 40-foot rocking chair. There was a 2-story combat boot. There was an American flag that covered 2 acres. Some of them, all it took was one look. Got rid of 400 the first day. Once we got down to about 200, we formed a little posse, all the jury, and went as a group in front of each contestant's entry. That first viewing, I did not pick it out to be a winner. Several of the other members of the jury did. I was wrong. The longer we looked at it, the deeper we saw into it, and the more profound that statement was. The longer I looked, the more convinced I was that it was unquestionably the one.
It was totally a surprise. I had not imagined that we would have anything of, I could say, that starkness, that simplicity, and I don't think any of us really knew what to say until Jack Wheeler was willing to stick his neck out, and he said, "I think it's a work of genius," and we all joined in applauding the jury's decision.
First thing I thought of was it looked like a bat, and I imagined the boomerang. I said, you know what? People are going to criticize this by saying this is a boomerang, and make an analogy to Vietnam as trying to throw away a boomerang, and the boomerang will always come back. This is going to be called a black hole in the ground. This is going to be a problem. This is a very unconventional memorial. The jurors, people like Hideo Sasaki, Mr. Harry Hunt, and others, convinced me and everyone in the room, because it was up to us to accept it or not accept it, that this was not just an average work of art, that this was really going to be a world-class work of art, something that could stand up next to the finest piece of architecture in Rome or Tokyo or London, that this was just not an average memorial. I walked out of there believing in this design, knowing that it was going to be a public relations problem, but was totally willing to fight for it.
We opened the little envelope on the back of the design and pulled out the cards. It indicated an address in New Haven. Jack Wheeler had spent time at Yale University, and he said that looks like student housing. So this person, who we thought was a woman, is obviously a student. And we sent, because we expected her, we had no idea how mature she was, we overreacted and sent a delegation of 3 people up to New Haven.
My roommate came and got me and only said, "Don't get your hopes up, but you got a call from Washington." So I went running back to my room, waited for them to call back, and all they said was, "Don't get your hopes up. We want to talk to you about your design." And they told me, and I didn't quite understand. So they told me again, and I'm still not quite understanding.
Do your parents know that you won?
Yeah, they're here in the audience. They're right back there. And my brother's here, and my roommate.
I point out, really the finest architects in the country, and also some of the highest priced architecture firms in the country did enter this competition, and they all lost.
When I was selected, I definitely knew I was in for a struggle, and I was in for a time that I knew I wouldn't understand, and it would be, it took me years and years to really figure out how difficult that time period was, and it was a pretty pressured time, and there was no way anyone could teach you how to get through this.
When I came home from Vietnam in December of 1968, I was literally spat upon in the Chicago airport as I walked through in my uniform. That spit hurt. It went through me like a spear. Welcome home. Now, when I saw the designs at the show at Andrews Air Force Base, indeed, I was impressed by the level of thought and effort that had gone into them. But when I saw the winning design, I was truly stunned. I thought that the most insulting and demeaning memorial to our Vietnam experience that was possible. I don't care about artistic perceptions. I don't care about the rationalizations that abound. One needs no artistic education to see this memorial design for what it is, a black scar. Black, the universal color of sorrow and shame and degradation in all races and all societies worldwide, in a hole, hidden as if out of shame, so that no Vietnam veteran who must spend the rest of his days in a wheelchair can ever visit it. As a Vietnam veteran who feels dishonored by the design that was declared the winner of the VVMF competition, I call on the United States Fine Arts Commission to reopen the selection process of the design competition and to require that the winning design be chosen by a jury composed exclusively of Vietnam veterans. Are we Vietnam veterans so blind? Are we so dumb? Will we be out-hustled again? Are we going to take this?
And it took me months to realize, obviously, a lot of people are going to be extremely offended that the creator of the American Vietnam veterans is not only not a veteran, but she is an Asian. And I did ask the veterans group I was working with, did mail come in? Did criticism come in? And sure, there was obviously letters saying, how can you let a gook design the memorial? I was actually very surprised that the one design issue that they really had problems with was the chronological listing, which to me was the heart of the design. The only way I could tell them is get a listing of all the Smiths that were listed and say, do you really think someone wants to come and find his son in a sea of 500 other names. It's just going to be impossible. That listing them chronologically was a much more realistic and easier way. I knew it would take time for you to look up a name, research where it is, and then go find it. And my only argument was that if you really loved someone, you're going to spend the extra 3 minutes. In fact, those 3 minutes of looking up that name and walking to and finding it is going to become so much a part of the preciousness of knowing that person.